Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Lori Johnson. Today, Israel issuing a warning to Hamas, release the hostages or face an assault within weeks. And the Israeli government clearly rejecting the international community's plans for a Palestinian state. The threat of future terrorism against Israel will bring you a look at how Hamas has indoctrinated young men in jihad and antisemitism through summer youth camps. One of the strongest political opponents of Vladimir Putin dies. We'll see why many believe he was murdered. And we'll take a look at potential threats to the U.S. from Russia and China in an unusual region of the world. And the longtime host of Big Brother, Julie Chen Moonves, talks to CBN News about the importance of her Christian faith in her life. Those stories and more today on NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin in Israel, which is warning Hamas release the hostages before the Islamic holy month of Ramadan begins in the middle of March, or the Jewish state will launch its offensive against the last Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah in Gaza. That promise coming as Israel's government is making it clear it will not accept a Palestinian state. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Israel's government issued a proclamation rejecting the international community's plan to impose a Palestinian state on Israel. The Knesset is expected to ratify the declaration on Monday.
Israel categorically rejects international edicts on a permanent arrangement with the Palestinians. Such an arrangement will be achieved only through direct negotiations between the sides without preconditions. Israel will continue to oppose unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. Recognition such as that, following the massacre of October 7th, will grant a major prize to terror, a prize that has not been seen before and will prevent any future peace arrangement.
In Gaza, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says 200 militants surrendered at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis.
We can say today that the Khan Yunis Brigade has been defeated. The Khan Yunis Brigade is no longer functioning as a military entity in any way.
War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz warned if Israeli hostages aren't returned by the beginning of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan in mid-March, Israel will press forward into the Rafah area. To those saying the price is too high, I say very clearly, Hamas has a choice. They can surrender, release the hostages, and this way the citizens of Gaza can celebrate the holy holiday of Ramadan. Meanwhile, Israel condemned comments by Brazil's president comparing the war in Gaza to the Holocaust.
Today, the president of Brazil, by comparing Israel's war in Gaza against Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organization, to the Holocaust, President Silva has disgraced the memory of 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis, and he's demonized the Jewish state like the most virulent anti-Semite. He should be ashamed of himself.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog met with the Qatari Prime Minister on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference about securing the release of more than 130 hostages still in Hamas hands in Gaza. Family members of the hostages accompanied Herzog to the conference. Herzog also showed a book found by the IDF in Gaza and written by Hamas co-founder and former Palestinian Authority Foreign Minister Dr. Mahmoud al-Zahar. The End of the Jews depicts swords and daggers piercing stars of David and Jews drowning in a sea of blood.
The book mainly hails the fact that, first of all, we should not recognize the fact that there are Jews and Jewish people, but most predominantly it hails the Holocaust. It hails what the Nazis have done and calls for a nation to follow what the Nazis have done.
In The Hague today, hearings opened on the legality of Israel's so-called occupation of lands sought for a Palestinian state. That would include Gaza, as well as biblical Judea and Samaria, where more than 500,000 Israeli Jews live. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
One reason Israelis oppose a Palestinian state is threat of terrorism. After Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007, it began indoctrinating children in antisemitism and jihad. In 2021, CBN News reported on so-called summer youth camps run by terrorist groups in Gaza. As CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports, it provided a chilling preview of what happened on October 7th.
Summer camps usually focus on fun through swimming, sports, and fellowship. In the Gaza Strip, however, Hamas and Islamic Jihad use them to instill a dangerous message. Leaders labeled these gatherings the Summer of Liberation.
We did not come here to enjoy ourselves or to play or anything like that. We came with our souls, our blood, our martyrs, and are wounded to sacrifice ourselves for Palestine and for our people.
This promotional video urged students of all grade levels, from primary through college, to participate. Activities included target practice involving AK-47s, anti-tank weapons, and video simulations.
So that in the next phase, Allah willing, these boys will be able to confront the plundering enemy and disfigure its face in the next war.
In May of 2021, Hamas and other Islamic groups used the name the Sword of Jerusalem when describing that year's 11-day war with Israel. Their goal? Prepare the coming generation for the next war.
We say to the enemy, these children picked up these weapons, and we train them how to use them, as well as how to take security measures, so that they will follow in the footsteps of their fathers and take up arms, Allah willing.
These young men and boys learned anti-Semitism at an early age.
We asked Hitler why he left some of you alive. He did so in order to show us how wicked you are. We will come to you from under the ground and hammer fear into your hearts, and above the ground we will tear your bodies apart with our rockets. Scram into the shelters, you mice, you sons of Jewish women.
When viewing the footage of the summer camp side by side with the attacks from October 7th, it's sobering evidence of how that training became reality, with the devastating results of 1,200 Israelis murdered and 240 kidnapped. In an interview with NBC News, Israeli President Isaac Herzog revealed this terror training to the world.
Let me show you a document, a highly confidential, strictly confidential document, which we just unraveled from the Hamas headquarters. It's a brochure, which is a directive by the commanders of Hamas as to how to manage summer camps for children in order to disseminate the values of jihad. It says it clearly, to disseminate the values of jihad and the values of the resistance, meaning terror, and how to make it a militarized society.
Herzog compared these camps of hatred to what's instilled in other parts of the world.
Whilst we all know what summer camps are and what they're aimed for and what a wonderful experience it is to enable youngsters, kids and adults, adolescents to become citizens of the free world with liberties, with happiness, with joy, with sports, here the entire aim is to make them terrorists.
Given the results, it appears clear Hamas's goal of training the next generation for jihad tragically succeeded on October 7th. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, the mysterious death of one of Vladimir Putin's last remaining political opponents in Russia. Was he murdered? We'll take a look at that question, as well as what the U.S. needs to do to protect itself from Russia and China in a key region of the world when we come back.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Another political opponent of Russia's Vladimir Putin has died under mysterious circumstances. Alexi Navalny was one of the last opposition leaders left in Russia, and some believe he was murdered. CBN's Dale Hurd brings us that story.
reports of Alexi Navalny's death in a Russian Arctic penal colony where he was serving a 30-year prison sentence, his family still has not been allowed to view his body. Navalny's allies accuse authorities of trying to hide evidence. A London newspaper quoted his sources describing Navalny's body as bruised.
The body was taken by investigative committee, and they are conducting some sort of investigations with him.
Russian authorities say Navalny died from sudden death syndrome, but most believe he was murdered. Navalny was the leading voice for democracy in Russia, despite being poisoned in 2020 and nearly dying. He returned to Russia against the advice of many and was arrested, and then jailed in its harsh penal system.
The death of Alexei Navalny yesterday was a reminder of the extraordinary brutality of Putin and his government.
Navalny seemed in perfect health just days before his death, seen on a monitor laughing and cracking jokes about his trial. The news provoked outrage around the world. An independent Russian human rights group says hundreds of people have been arrested for protesting Navalny's death. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham told CBS Face the Nation the U.S. needs to hit Putin hard by designating Russia a state sponsor of terrorism.
A state sponsor of terrorism designation is a game changer. It would allow more sanctions. It would allow the Navales family to go to U.S. court and sue Putin's Russia for killing of their loved one.
Republican Congressman Mike Turner said he prayed with Navalny's widow in Germany and that the U.S. should respond with more military support for Ukraine. The Senate has passed a foreign aid bill, but the House has rolled out its own version.
Vladimir Putin is a murderous thug. I think that as a result of Navalny's death, that we should even be that more strong in funding Ukraine and passing this in the House and the Senate, sending a message to Putin.
Most of Russia's opposition is either dead, in exile, or in prison. With Navalny's death, many are wondering if this is the end of political dissent in Russia. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
As the world grows more dangerous with increasing threats from Russia and China, U.S. lawmakers are pressing to secure a region often overlooked, the Arctic. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke looks at why some of America's most remote territory remains vital to homeland security.
With the Alaska Purchase in 1867, the U.S. became one of 8 countries with territory above the Arctic Circle. Russia has the largest presence, and as its alliance with China strengthens, so does Beijing's influence.
We are in a new era of authoritarian aggression, led by the dictators Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. They are running hostile regimes that seek to control access to the Arctic region.
In the summer of 2022, China and Russia deployed their first joint naval task force of 7 ships into Alaska's waters. It happened again last summer with 11 ships.
This is a sign of things to come. We not only need more Coast Guard assets, but also a Navy presence back in Alaska. We will need to be able to respond more rapidly in the future to these kind of incursions.
With sea ice receding, experts warn Arctic routes are more accessible than ever, and U.S. adversaries have built up Arctic capabilities and military facilities, leaving America in their wake.
The U.S. is very poorly positioned in order to defend its own sovereignty in the region versus the Russians, which have invested heavily over the past couple decades in basically trying to militarize the region.
The U.S. currently has only one operational polar icebreaker ship, which is uniquely designed to navigate the Arctic waters. Russia's fleet has more than 50, and the Chinese are on pace to surpass the U.S. by 2025. Under pressure to keep up, the Coast Guard wants 8 to 9 more icebreakers in the region.
We need your continued support to build out our polar security cutters and rapidly accelerate us into the future where we can have a greater capacity for icebreakers.
Lawmakers consider securing the Arctic an urgent critical need, and this year have authorized roughly $168 million for military construction and equipment. With the nation's first deep water port underway in Nome, Alaska, the goal is for there to be the infrastructure to handle these icebreakers and Navy destroyers by the end of the decade. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, our conversation with Chen Moonves about the importance of her Christian faith. We'll hear from the longtime host of Big Brother and one of the former co-hosts of The Talk right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Chen Moonves is the longtime host of Big Brother and former co-host of The Talk. She sat down with Ephraim Graham and explained how she gets personal in her new audio memoir called But First, God.
I went back and looked at your saying goodbye on The Talk, and then knowing that you were betrayed, but you gave love and expressed something beautiful about every single. What made you do that?
Well, first of all, we are all flawed, right? And I did have 8 years of wonderful memories with everyone, which is why the cut felt so deep. So I chose to remember the great times because there were so many of them, and I still look back on them fondly.
And this is before you even begin this journey on a relationship with God.
Right. And so, which tells me now, looking back, like we are all made in His image. So God must have been pushing me, like, take the high road, right? Always. And I did, you know. So He was already moving in my life without me even knowing it then or acknowledging it then.
Take me back to the day you're dropping your son off at school and you decide, I'm going to go searching for a church.
It was Holy Spirit moving. It was that morning that I woke up to an email from my favorite aunt. She emailed me that her friend from her church in New Jersey had been praying for me and my family and was touched by Holy Spirit to call my aunt and say, you got to tell your niece Julie about the gospel. And I thought, who is this woman who has never met me, doesn't know me, who felt so compelled to call my aunt to pray for me and tell me about Jesus? Okay. And I had been toying with the idea for months about going to church. And I just never got up and did it. And I thought, okay, today is the day. And I just broke down and got on my knees and sobbed and asked for God for help, for guidance, for answers, for direction, for love, for His hand. And it was when I was at my worst, in the darkest time, that His light really came shining in.
Part of the beauty of your story, at least in studying the Bible at the start, is being able to do that with your mom.
Oh, that was another blessing in disguise. So in early 2020, my father unexpectedly died. He basically hit his head, internal bleeding. He had suffered a ruptured appendix. While he was home alone, my mom was visiting me an hour and a half away. So 24 hours later, he passed away. So during that time, we leaned on each other and we leaned on God's word, and doing that together was a beautiful journey.
Has this journey given your husband a different wife and your son a different mom?
Oh, absolutely. I think I am way more calm, peace-loving, non-judgmental. The fact that I will pray and ask them to pray with me before a family meeting, whether it's about a report card or anything that's like a tough parenting issue, for them to hear my intentions, you know, where my son sees, okay, mom's not about to lecture me just to like make me feel bad. Like she wants me to grow from this and she's actually rooting for me. It just sets the tone.
There's some beautiful practical ways. I mean, hearing you when your son doesn't want to pray for a friend that's getting on his nerves, and to help him explore, so why has your friend insulted your mom? And don't want to give too much away, but that's a beautiful
to
see it play out like that.
Yeah, you have to try and put yourself in that person's shoes. You have to just have empathy and know that it's not really about you. You pray for that person.
People may be surprised, but I appreciated this as this is even changed the way you approach interviews for Big Brother.
Yeah, I look at everyone through a loving lens, no matter what. Let me see them the way Jesus sees them. Please, Lord, I pray that. And know that there's always a treasure there.
Julie Chen Moonves' new audiobook, But First, God, is available wherever you get your listening material. She also has a clothing line, and of course, you can catch her this summer when Big Brother returns to CBS. Coming up, how CBN's Operation Blessing provided help for those in need when intense tornadoes struck Cottonwood, Alabama last month. And we'll hear how one reverend said she knew Jesus will see us through. When we come back, stay with us.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
When intense tornadoes struck Cottonwood, Alabama in January, CBN's Operation Blessing was one of the first on the ground to provide disaster relief. Reverend Lottie Williams was still in bed when she heard the sirens go off. She looked out the window and saw that her shed was down and a tree had fallen on her truck. She said all she could do was turn to Jesus. Thanks to support from its partners, Operation Blessing provided Lottie and several other families with water bottles, emergency food kits, and cleaning materials they needed after the storms. The disaster relief team helped Lottie clean away debris and damage from her home, and they found her Bible in her shed. She said she knew everything would be okay because Jesus will see us through. Well, you can find out more about Operation Blessing by visiting ob.org. And that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great day, everyone.